Thank you, Ambassador, Archbishop Osa, for your statement and also for your very generous introduction about me and other speakers. Of course, it's a great pleasure to meet Ambassador Rush and also Jonathan. I think the task before us is how to dare to interpret what His Holiness Pope said to UN member states and the whole international community, which really surprised all of us. And even many have asked questions, I'm sure you and also your foreign minister, that whether and how much Pope is likely to speak about disarmament agenda. And when we, all of us, heard what he actually said about disarmament agenda, we were really surprised. And really thanks for arranging it. And also, your foreign minister also confirmed that he himself was very happy to hear what His Holiness talked about disarmament agenda. And the way I read his message, I think maybe I can say 4 clear messages. First, about the link between disarmament and peace, of course, and development. Pope recognized now it becomes a real link. Unless we address it, the whole international community addresses it as one. We will not be able to succeed. That's the first message I read. And second message I read was, so Pope emphasized that we must devise practical solutions, and we have to pursue them through effective institutions. And third message I read is, we must act with a sense of urgency. So action should start now. And finally, Pope also emphasized that we must see the human face of these issues, because all too often when we talked about the problems, victims of the conflict and violence, and also refugees, migrants, we tend to take it as the numbers, but we forget that we are talking about real people. So if the Archbishop agrees, if my interpretation is correct, I would dare to move on to a little more elaboration.
Yeah, sure.
First, on the issue of nuclear disarmament. Although international community has made progress, if we compare to the peak time of the Cold War to now, the number of nuclear weapons has gone down dramatically. But the problem is, it appears to be stalling now. So we must find a way to revive that momentum on nuclear disarmament. Still, even one nuclear weapon is too many, and still we have to live with 16,000 sophisticated nuclear weapons are simply too many. And also fears about the dangers of the use of nuclear weapons by accidents or by miscalculation, by miscommunication are still real. And also new fears about those WMD and their materials ending up in the wrong hands becomes real risk. So, guided by the Security Council, our office and our partners are working very hard to prevent those possibilities. But it requires a lot of work and also a lot of support from all the donors so that we can help concerned states build their capacities to prevent those WMD or their material from being used or getting accessed by the terrorist or extremist. Here also, as His Holiness pointed out, the sad reality is that although international community agrees on the destination of a world free of nuclear weapons, we have very different views about how to get there. So we all agree about the destination, but we don't have consensus about how we should and we can get to that destination. And recent NPT review conference was a big disappointment to all of us. And we have to find a way how we can prepare for the next review cycle of the NPT, which will mark 50 years from the adoption and 25 years from the extension. So 25 years before the extension and 25 years after the extension. So next review must be a success. And that means we have to start our work from now. We cannot wait until next year, years after, and the work should start now. And we all know that when we have very serious problems, when we have serious differences among member states, we need to have a process. If that process is inclusive, the better. But without process, it becomes very difficult to manage. So that will be the first challenge this coming first committee, which already started its work from today, is going to face. How we can create an inclusive process which then allow key players come to the table and engage in frank discussion about the way forward, how to get out of the problems we have identified last May. So one good thing from the last failure was that at least we were able to identify what is the issue and what is the difference. And also there were some movements, positive movements made up to May. So if we are able to identify a process through which we can pick up the pieces from our last attempt and then move forward, then I think we can build a certain common ground. The second issue I'd like to elaborate a little bit is about the human face of the problems we are confronting. And growing recognition of humanitarian consequences of nuclear weapons is growing. So the group created called Humanitarian Impact, Humanitarian Pledge, however you call it, is now drawing significantly a large number of member states. Although among the group still there are diverse viewpoints about how they have to pursue their goals from now. But still, I think it's a positive development. And also, there is even about the humanitarian impact from the conventional weapons is also growing. For the last 2 or 3 years, UN is leading an effort to remind the member states and other stakeholders of the need to begin discussion on the humanitarian impact of explosives used in populated areas. Because one study shows that explosives used in urban populated environments more than 90% of casualties is innocent civilian. So this issue must be addressed with a sense of urgency by the whole international community. And a third issue we are trying to address and also help member states is related to historic agreement and conclusion of Arms Trade Treaty last year. It was a great achievement, and it entered into force with record speed. But still, its ratification is still less than half of all the member states, and we have still more than 40 states which supported or signed the Arms Trade Treaty, but not ratified yet. So we have a work to do with these states, and many of these states are not able to do it, not because they are unwilling to do it, but most probably because they are incapable of preparing their domestic legislation and put other measures in place. So my office, in cooperation with state parties of the Arms Trade Treaty and the Secretariat to be set up, has been to help state parties of Arms Trade Treaty and those aspiring to become state parties build their capacity for the ratification and also for the implementation. Because conclusion of important treaty is historic milestone, but that's the only beginning. Real work starts from there. And unless we find a way to help them build real capacities, the desired effect of any significant arms control treaty will not come to fruition. So we'll continue to our best to help Arms Trade Treaty Secretariat also and other partners in that direction. The third issue I'd like to elaborate is with regard to new security threats. Because as we all know that modern technologies are driving us mostly maybe positive ways, but also it brings new risks. And the pace of technological advances always outpaces our capacity to minimize the risk coming with it. And here we must address the increasing risk from such issues as the unmanned aerial vehicles, commonly referred to as drones, and also lethal autonomous weapons, robots. So in many areas, either we don't have legal framework or we don't have even common understanding what should be the least common denominator of legal framework to deal with these issues. And another serious issue which increasingly occupies our minds recently is cyber threat. On cybersecurity, UN, we spent 10 years and we compose a small group of governmental experts, so with a 2-year mandate, four groups of governmental experts, and number has increased only from 15 to 20. It means we are not there even to ask 193 member states to start discussing it. We are not ready because differences are so wide. But the sad reality is that whatever gap we have in our normative framework, that gap is being exploited by those who are not bound by it, and there's no way we can hold them accountable. So unless we find a way to start our work to bridge that gap, we are afraid that we'll see much greater risk coming to our life, and then with the technological development, that gap will be get even wider. So these are the issues I hope international community will ponder seriously now, with clear messages coming from His Holiness the Pope, and also with the continued support of Ambassador Ausa on our efforts. And I hope your blessing to the first committee will help us awaken ourselves. Thank you so much.